I'm Cindy Brown, and let's queer up trans rights. Trans couple arrested after being beaten by a mob over restroom dispute. Civil rights advocates are raising outrage after a transgender woman and her non-binary partner were arrested and charged by police in Louisiana following a violent assault by a crowd. According to reports, Shae Sanders and her partner Aurora Rush were targeted after being confronted near a restroom facility. Witnesses report that a mob surrounded the couple and physically assaulted them, leaving both with injuries. However, when law enforcement arrived at the scene, officers arrested Sanders and Rush rather than detaining any members of the mob. Legal advocates and community organizations are now demanding an investigation into local law enforcement's response, citing alleged police bias and selective enforcement. Now, I wouldn't use the word alleged at all.
Right.
There's clearly police bias in this instance. And when is the person that gets beat up by a mob gets arrested? I mean, it's unfathomable that any reasonable person would walk into a situation where a crowd of people assaulted two women and the police come and arrest the victims.
And what in the name of suffering Jesus was the charge?
Mm-hmm.
What were they charged with? These bleeding, hurt people?
Probably because the trans woman was in the women's room. But it's ridiculous. Even so, people can't beat up other people.
Once again,
you can't.
No.
They're so scary.
Whether you think it's correct
They're so
or not.
scary,
It's
these
illegal.
trans people, that we can just do
Oh
whatever
my
we want
God,
to them.
they're so scary,
Meanwhile,
aren't they?
they're the ones who are victimized.
Totally.
Again.
You know, it's a way of criminalizing identity. I think the reason why they were arrested is not because of what they did, but who they are, obviously.
Totally.
Well, we say, of course, well, we know that because we're gay. But it reminds me of a little story of, I was in Amsterdam for Gay Pride, and on Gay Pride, I was staying at the only place that would have me on such short notice was a hostel. And it was a really nice, funky place. I was downstairs at 6 o'clock in the morning because I wanted to get to my boat really quickly for the Gay Pride Parade. I was wearing shorty shorts. I thought I looked really nice. And some security guard came up to me. They had Pride banners, came up to me and said to me, "You can't be wearing underwear in the lobby," and proceeded to say, "I'm going to have you arrested for that."
In Amsterdam.
In Amsterdam.
Wow. Interesting.
And that's what this kind of reminds me of. I mean, obviously I wasn't arrested, I wasn't beat up, but it's a criminalization of an identity. It's a singling out. It's a making wrong of a person for being who they are, of not conforming.
Meanwhile, you could stand in a storefront window dressed exactly like that in that same city.
He said to me, he said to me, "Those are underwear." I said, "Sir, I'm wearing a belt and it has buttons and a zipper on it, and they're short and they're shorts and they have pockets."
And you said I never wear underwear.
Joke's on you.
No, but that's what this story reminds me of, is that it's making wrong the person for expressing themselves outwardly.
Exactly.
In a place in New Orleans. Well, it sounds like it's New Orleans, but it said Louisiana. I'm assuming it's New Orleans, but maybe it's not.
I doubt that it's
I would
New Orleans.
expect them to be treated better.
Somewhere else.
But whatever, it's making wrong however a person wants to present themselves. And I'm sure that the people weren't naked on the street. I'm sure that it was just them living their lives and
going to the restroom
and expressing themselves in a way that made other people uncomfortable. And probably the officer felt that they were justified in arresting them because they disturbed the peace. And that's what kind of brings up my trauma about what happened to me in Amsterdam, is that I offended, sensibility.
It might be even more sinister than that, though, because it said they were found near the bathroom.
Yeah.
It might be an assumption that they were going to or from the bathroom.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it might even be more sinister than they were just using the bathroom. They might not even have been using the bathroom.
I did read something that mentioned that they were coming out of the bathroom, but, it doesn't matter what anybody does.
Agreed.
This country does not give anyone permission
No.
to physically assault anybody for any reason whatsoever unless it's in self-defense.
January 6th notwithstanding.
Well, I guess when you have a small mentality and you're a small person and you live by certain rules that you believe keep you safe, and you see other people living by other rules that obviously don't conform to yours, you want to arrest them. You want to shut them up. You want to have them taken out of your reality because they don't conform to what you think keeps you safe and keeps the world safe. And it's a very sad state of affairs, and we need to do something about that. And I'm glad we're bringing light to it.
I think that we, here at Queer News Tonight, we are telling the stories that nobody else is telling.
Right.
And that's why it's so important, because there are a lot of people within the LGBT community who are apathetic and who aren't, really aware of what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And, we all need to take a stand, because if we don't stand for them, who's going to stand for us?
And I want to point out one bit of, it could be ignorance, it could be hypocrisy. But Louisiana is one of those southern red religious states.
Mm-hmm.
So that there's a lot of Christian bias and a lot of Christian, whatever, and all in this. If you're a Christian and you, I do not. Obviously, I think a lot of the biblical stories and traditional stories are myths and, whatever, and they serve a point, but not to tell you what really happened. But for those who say, oh yeah, it really happened, you are following, admiring, venerating, worshiping, whatever, a guy who you celebrate every December as not having a father at all in the whole biological makeup,
Right.
which means only someone with two X chromosomes all by herself had a baby, which makes Jesus intersex. So the hypocrisy and or ignorance of naming your whole goddamn thing over what would be, if it were literal, an intersex person. Would you please deal with that for a second?
Well, let's be real. If Jesus were alive today, they would call him woke and throw him in jail.
100%.
Well, if Jesus were alive today, they would assassinate him like they did 2,000 years ago.
Yes.
Because we haven't moved very much as a species.
And who did it was empire, who did it was government, and that's who would do it today.
Exactly.
Well, because people don't want to hear, the good news. You see what I just did there? Yeah.
We were
Anyway.
Well, there is no other queer nonprofit media platform like this in the entire world. Support our LGBTQ stories by sharing them and subscribing to Queer News Tonight.